Back from break, Cowboy State Daily Show with Jake on a Tuesday, and Latham Jenkins drops in. Realtor, associate broker, Live Water Properties, top producer for them year after year. What Latham would describe he does is not sell you a home and hand you the keys. He connects people to experiences, and that is true of him. I can tell you that. He's a different kind of realtor. For instance, I don't want to tell your story, Latham. I want you to tell it, but this is the kind of realtor Latham Jenkins is. If you were looking to purchase in the Jackson Hole area, let's say, and you're from out of state, before Latham drives you around to different homes and says, check this one, he'd probably take you fly fishing first, because he wants you to understand the culture, to live the culture, to love Wyoming like he does. And you might be wondering, when are you going to show me some homes? He's like, the home is secondary. I'm showing you life, man, in Wyoming, in Jackson Hole. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love what you're doing at Live Water Properties.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate you being here. And, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Cowboy State Daily. What you're doing for Wyoming, United Voices, giving a space for stories and issues that matter to everyday folks across the state. I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
Good. Well, it's a perfect combination. So we'll start off with the easy question. Real estate in Jacksonville. Like, what is going on with real estate? Latham?
Well, our great state is under a lot of pressure. People certainly realize what we have realized long before of it being unique. It's very authentic still. I know people might shake their head when they think about Jackson, but nonetheless, as we look around the region, of what Wyoming offers over, some of the states that surround us, and that authenticity really, is appealing to those that are coming to our great state for the privacy it affords, the lifestyle attributes, and the opportunity to be a part of something. And there's an old timer long ago, Jake, that said, the difference between now and back then is back then they came for what we had. They wanted to live in a cabin, enjoy fishing along a stream, ride a horse. We're seeing an evolution that culturally is different than why people have come here historically. But nonetheless, I see it as my job to make sure they understand, our great state, our values, and I want to impress that upon them as we welcome them, into the community.
Yeah, well, that kind of gets into one of my questions I wanted to ask. Are you seeing new buyers from outside this area, from outside the state? Do you still see Wyoming appeal to them, especially considering Live Water Properties based in Jackson Hole? I know the rest of the state likes to think Jackson Hole no longer exists in Wyoming, but are people coming to buy Wyoming? What are their interests? What are their whatever it is that's driving them away from where they are? Are they attracted to what we've come to know of Wyoming, that authenticity, the ruralness, the way we live in Wyoming? Is that still an appeal? Can they still find it compared to where they were? Probably, yes.
Yeah, great question. I have the privilege of working across the state on different properties, different ranches. And, I think back historically as, to give context to what's happening. And Wyoming's always attracted outside capital, shall we say, whether you're from Britain, Europe, or the East Coast. This started in the 1800s and has continued today as people, look for what the Great West offers as a lifestyle. And the role that I play is really trying to find the right next steward for these properties. Someone who comes in quietly, listens, respects the land, and hopefully is looking to be a great asset for the state in regards to continuing on with what we believe for our values and our culture and that's not easy to do. A lot of that is achieved through the message that you send and the marketing that you put out there to attract the right buyer to begin with, and making sure you're being culturally sensitive. And I always like to say, Jake, it's about paying reverence. These are just legacy properties. These are properties that have been around in many cases for generations, and it's really distilled upon us to find someone who's going to be, shall I say, value add for our great state. And I just closed on a property yesterday. And I was explaining to a buyer that typically when representing a lot of sellers, it's the end of the run for a family. It might be, multiple generations, and you sit there and you feel that pain and agony they have with, considering trading a property. And, we know land is perpetual, ownership is not. And there's always a point where we get here, and there are tears shared. And, you look around these living rooms and see all the family memories. And I was just saying to this buyer how fortunate they are to be at the beginning of this experience they're about to have here in Wyoming, and how lucky we are to have such a differentiated offering in the sense of the lifestyle, the recreation, the scenic beauty. It's real here in Wyoming. I'm certainly grateful to have shared some 30 years of living here myself.
It's a lot more, obviously, you can hear from Latham than handing somebody the keys to their new home. Let's talk about the role of a realtor, the role of what you do at Live Water Properties, beginning with why your job is probably not going to be taken by AI anytime soon. You don't disrespect the process. It's what it's all about. Walking the buyer and seller through a transaction, getting them together. There is a lot to it. I don't want to, make your profession any more than it is, but it's a computer can't do it. It's special people kind of do it. And there's a lot to what realtors do.
Sure. Again, I'm privileged. I work on a lot of the larger estate properties with acreage, as with ranches. And, the first thing I do, Jake, if I'm working with a buyer, is I take time to tour them around the property. If you're not in love with the property and the setting, that the house is not something that will matter. It's also done in an effort to make sure they appreciate how that property will live for them. And it's, in a lot of cases, I kind of understand they don't get that out of the gate. And we basically have to demonstrate the lifestyle to them. When representing a seller, you change gears. And the first thing that I start with is an interview with the family. I want to understand, paying reference to their property, what's been important, what's been meaningful. Really, who would they like to see to be the next steward to carry on what they have created? And that's, it's very insightful. As a realtor, I always like to say we are the least informed party at the table, the kitchen table, when we start. We have to go out and not only work with the family, work with the neighbors, and think about the community that we're working in and what they hold for their values and what they would like to see, and then shape a story that hopefully attracts the right buyer.
Yeah. Latham, I'm sure, not everybody does it like Latham Jenkins, but the true realtors should be concerned with meaningful stuff like that Latham just described. Obviously, they're going to walk you, the seller, through things like staging, how to best stage your property, take care of deferred maintenance now before you get a buyer that's saying, fix the roof now if that's what it needs. They'll give you advice, both buyer and seller aspect. They'll walk buyers through maybe a competitive scenario on how to make sure their bid's on top. Yeah, we know the crucial role played by realtors. Associate broker, Live Water Properties, Latham Jenkins with us. Tell us how you all got started. Great realtors aren't born. They were in another occupation and they said, you know what, I can do this in a different way. You started a creative agency in the mid-'90s in Jackson. And I think you watched other real estate companies leaving some on the table when they were marketing their properties. You're like, hey, I'll sell you an ad in my magazine, but you really should do this. And man, you found your sweet spot a few years ago. How'd you make that transition?
Well, thanks, Jake. That's a great tee up. Yeah, I've always had a love of sharing stories and sharing place. And that's certainly coupled with Wyoming and what life offers for all of us that have the opportunity to live in this great state. And so I started publishing magazines here in Jackson. They were targeted to our visitors that come in, and also a magazine called Homestead that's focused on the homes that we're building that in many ways were considered art on the landscape, but most people cannot see that art. So the publication was meant to be a platform for that. But what I really recognized in that process was the opportunity to do more than just the mechanics. Well, as I transition into real estate, I realized it's more than just the mechanics as you were speaking about a deal. Let's take it a step further and talk about what does life look like here on this property or on this ranch. And that's coupled with my own passion for where we live with fly fishing and hunting and being outdoors. And it was just yesterday in this absolutely crazy weather that we're having. I drove a couple out to a gravel bar on the Snake River, set up lunch, and help them understand, what it's like to be the next steward of this property and how it's going to live. And let's just sit here peacefully for 5 minutes and listen to the river and look at the Tetons. It's life changing. And so I've been great at what I've learned through my publishing and storytelling, and to really how I run showings. And those showings are really meant to be more of a combination of nature tour, history, the opportunity to listen to the buyer and what they're looking for, and really a way to kind of shape that conversation to let them know, really a little bit what's expected about being the next steward of this given property and joining us here in Wyoming.
I really like that, Latham, because I worry, like maybe a lot of people, that Wyoming is changing, Jackson Hole is changing. New people coming in don't understand what it means and what it's like to be here. And I'm glad that you're making more than just handshake deals. You're helping put them, because otherwise it doesn't work. If you don't put the right people in the right place, it doesn't work for them, and it's not going to work for you long term. The difference between, listening to a buyer and saying, "I think you're more Southwest Bank than Northwest Bank," like it makes, believe me, as in Jackson Hole, makes a huge difference. And understanding that, Latham does. Two more things, Latham, I want to hit. One, how do you market in this day and age? The old fashioned way is, you bought a 2-page truck color ad for your place. Now we're doing 3D walkthroughs of properties. It is the game has changed.
It really has. And, that question in particular, speaks to me, Jake, as a storyteller. I'm fortunate in that I shoot all of my own video and photography, and I use that as a way to inform myself about the property. I'm out there watching, say in the fall time when the elk are coming out, recording, this whole interaction that happens with the rut, and helping buyers to understand, no, this really happens here on your property. Those Teton sunrises, those, the migrations that happen in the spring and the fall across the ranches. It's endless content. And I find that by immersing myself first in the story, again, starting with the family, doing the interview, understanding the history, the culture, and spending enough time on either the estate property, the ranch, to feel like I've had a chance to capture it in its best light. It's game changing in the way that we can present these properties. It's immersive, and it brings someone aspirationally right into the moment that they're most likely seeking in their life, which is, again, that authenticity, that access to nature, the rural component that Wyoming offers, and trying to connect them with it. And it's fortunately, it's been working.
Yeah, well, John Young would be proud of the way you're using photos and videos to tell the story.
You've done your homework, Jake.
A little bit. Two more things. One, what is can you ballpark the demographics of today's buyer in Jackson Hole? Are they young? Are they old? Are they millennials? Like who's buying in, and what drives them? What are they motivated? Who are they?
Sure. Well, you always kind of have to, as you did, limit it to say what's happening in a specific place. So we'll pick on Jackson at this time. And,
yeah,
the demographics historically were people that were, nearing their retirement, the baby boomers, so to speak. Kids are out of the nest, but that obviously evolved. And we saw that trend before COVID, with how virtual working had started, and young families were able to be located here, and mom and dad were utilizing the airport to kind of keep up with their professional careers, but they appreciate the opportunity to anchor the family here. That's certainly continuing, through COVID at this time, as people understand their opportunities to live in a more lifestyle centric locale. The bigger change that I'm seeing is just the magnitude of wealth being attracted to the state. Our great state obviously has extreme tax efficiency, and that is very appealing to those that are looking to get into a more tax friendly locale, especially yeah now more than ever. And it's it is attracting a different audience. I'd like to think, kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, Wyoming has always attracted capital. It's been the case from the beginning, and it's really our job, as residents here, to help guide them and how we want to share with them, our values, our culture, how this great state's going to continue, and not allow it to be overrun with with the concerns that we have when we hear this going on, that we are going to be overrun. I feel it's incumbent upon us to continue to reinforce these values and to be a good neighbor, and also expect out of them, the things that we should, with living here.
Latham Jenkins is with us. Jackson Hole real estate, unlike real estate anywhere really, shielded from national trends. In fact, sometimes running counter. It's a different buyer and seller atmosphere in Jackson. We know that. But some of the same pains are being felt. It's not all rosy. There are problems in real estate. There's problems in home buying right now. People are just priced out everywhere, not just in Jackson, but that starter home. It's just, I don't know. How do you fix it, Latham? You have 1 minute.
Well, housing affordability is an issue not only here but around the nation. And sure, those low interest rates really, in many ways, came back to bite us once they went away. Because it enabled the housing prices to skyrocket on us, and we haven't seen a huge shift in pricing come down on housing. No, I think affordability is here to stay. Affordability issues here to stay, and it's most unfortunate. I have kids exiting college soon, and I'm very worried about it myself.
Yeah. Latham Jenkins joins us. Live Water Properties. You can just look them up if you're in the market, and I'm glad there's somebody like you who's got some heart and soul in it, who does worry about things like Jackson being overloved to death, and finding the right kind of people and sharing first the lifestyle with them before you put them in a home. I like the way you do it.
Well, Jake, I'm grateful for being here. I thank you, and continue the great work.
All right. Don't be a stranger. Come on anytime you got something to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Latham Jenkins on the show. We got to get with Jackie Dorothy, and we'll do that right after this here.